This time on BC Wild, I'm headed back into the north in an attempt to top my freezer back up with something that hasn't found its way there in quite a few years: salmon. This is a river I've had on my list to learn for quite a few years, but finding time to learn a new river between work and life isn't always easy. But it just so happens I have a few free days off, I'm bringing the wife along for a relaxing river weekend, so I've told her anyways, and we're in the heart of Chinook season in the north. After an 8-hour drive and a quick camp setup, we hit the river for just a quick evening session. It doesn't take long for my bobber to drain and I'm hooked into my first fish of the trip. Unfortunately, my camera does something weird here and refuses to focus, so for this fish, you're just gonna have to deal with some less than ideal footage. My wife is a teacher and not a photographer, and she helps me out with the filming as a favor to me, and to be honest, I couldn't even figure out why I refused to focus here, but the classic turning it on and off seems to fix the problem. I also wasn't exactly prepared to hook up in my first few casts, and don't even have the mic set up yet, so I do promise that the camera work and audio does get better. This fish is a little dark and it's still early in the trip, plus with a 1 fish a day limit, I can only have 2 in my possession and I'm hopeful I can find some fresher fish for the freezer, so I decide to turn them back and send them home to make some babies. This would be my only fish for the evening, but tomorrow we'll be out bright and early and ready for a full day of exploring new waters. I've been wanting to fish this river for a long time. Gets a really good steelhead run, and say I'm going to get up here every year to fish steelhead and just haven't been able to yet. Just because time constraints or whatever, just haven't been able to make it happen, but had a bit of time off. It's mid-July right now, so me and the wife came up for a camping trip, and springs are running, should be some chum around, maybe some early coho. So just kind of taking it as an opportunity to come up, learn the river. Got off to a pretty good start last night. He was pretty colored up, but he was a pretty nice spring. Unfortunately, the footage wasn't all that great. Just cameras having trouble focusing for whatever reason, but I got off to a pretty good start and just gonna do some exploring around the river, check out some places, kind of get some spots and runs in mind for when I do make it up here for steelhead, and hopefully get a couple of springs in the freezer in the process. I return to the same run in hopes of finding another fish willing to play. I flip some spoons, drift a bead, and even throw a little wool on the hook in hopes of enticing another bite. After a few hours, I decide to move up a little higher into what looks like a deeper pocket. After watching a few fish roll directly in front of me, I'm feeling good, and it doesn't take long for another fish to drop my bobber. Not a bad fish, I think that one's a keeper. After a quick success, I find a little more, but jinx myself and I tell the wife that I'm 2 for 2. I'd hook 2 more, but the fish quickly humble me and only stay hooked for a few seconds apiece. We made a move and we found this nice little deep bucket. And basically right off the highway here, but Wasn't too much going on in that first spot. I did find one fish there last night, but I think that was a rock. But yeah, there's just kind of a bit of a deep bucket right off this dike, and moved here. I've already hooked 3, only landed that one, but it's been working pretty good. I think they're traveling right up. I've been hooking almost all of them, like maybe 5-10 feet offshore. So just slowly drifting a bead down there and lots of big rocks. I'm just letting it kind of gently graze the top of those big rocks. Just barely got her off the bottom. And been pretty productive. Only been fishing here about an hour. I've already hooked 3 fish. As badly as I want to explore the river, it's hard to leave a spot you know you're going to find some fish, and we return to the same run in the evening. After an hour of watching fish roll in front of me and a few missed hook sets, I hook into my 3rd fish of the trip. With the fact I already have my fish for the day, I keep this fish wet and return him home as quickly as possible. It's crazy how tight to shore these fish have been. You know, I've been hooking them maybe 10 feet offshore, but it's the deepest part of the run, and I find that springs tend to find the deepest part of the run. That might have been bottom getting in there. Kind of having this dike here, it's kind of created a bit of a channel. It's considerably deeper than kind of the rest of the width of the river here, and they seem to be coming up right on this edge. Done pretty good. Oh, that one was a fish. I wonder if there's a trout sitting there. Never mind, it wasn't a fish. Good old stick fish. I fished till nearly dark, but it's to no avail. Tomorrow's my exploration day, and it's time to get the boots wet and take note of a few good runs for future reference. I start my day in the same run with hopes that I'll hook a fresh one and take the pressure off of finding a fish for the freezer. But today, the fish just aren't cooperating. It's our final day here. Just fishing the spot that I fished for the most part yesterday. I'm not going to fish here a whole bunch because I do want to try a couple new things today. maybe fish a little bit lower down, try and get a coho, but I can keep one more spring. I can only have 2 in my possession because we're not anywhere near home. After a few hours, we move and walk into a few new runs, but it's more of the same. It's been a tough day, which isn't such a bad thing. Big point of this trip was kind of getting to try out a new river, experiment a little bit. I'm hoping to get at least one more so that I can bring 2 home, but if I don't, it is what it is. It's still fun, still landed 3. Lost a few more, missed a few other opportunities. On our final run of the day, my luck finally changes. Kind of. First fish of the day, might be the smallest fish I've ever caught. Almost in the mouth, but most likely foul hooked. On these slow days though, I'll take it. I don't know if he's gonna make it, unfortunately. The hook was right through his gills, but we fished for a few more hours, but the poor little fellow would be my final fish of the trip. Still, this was a very successful trip, and now it's time to head home and enjoy the success cooked over the barbecue. I wanted to do this out while we were camping on my barbecue, but just ran out of time. It was late time I got back and had a long 8-hour drive home the next day, so just got up, packed up camp, and got back home. But that's all right because I'm going to be able to cook it a little bit fancier than I'm going to be able to do out there. So I looked up a bunch of recipes online. I don't cook a ton of salmon. It's been quite a few years since I've been salmon fishing. I do a fair amount of kokanee, but I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to cook it on the barbecue. So I picked up a couple cedar planks. I'm going to cook it on the barbecue like that. And right now I'm just going to cook a quick base for it essentially. So I'm going to melt some butter, add in some lemon juice, a little bit of fresh dill, salt, pepper, and a bit of paprika. Just make a nice base for it, and then I'm going to move outside. I'm going to get it out. I'm going to get the barbecue ripping hot. I'll get it on the barbecue. Let it cook for about 10 minutes on the cedar plank, and just kind of slowly baste it as I do, and then finish it off with a little bit of fresh dill on top. I think it should turn out pretty good, but we're going to find out. Started off with a pretty good dollop of butter there. Pan was a little hot. Thinking this pan would be plenty big enough, but I'm already starting to have my doubts. A little bit of salt. Decent amount of pepper. A little bit of paprika. This has been my favorite spice lately. We'll do quick little stir here. A full lemon's worth of lemon juice. And some fresh dill from my garden. Give that a mix, we'll just kind of let it warm up. Got my salmon basted now. Barbecue's nice and hot. Get a mess. Throw that on. And I'm gonna close that up and give it about 10 minutes to cook. So some mistakes were made. Like I mentioned, it's the first time I've ever cooked on a cedar plank like this, and wasn't even intending on doing it originally. Originally I was gonna make a tinfoil boat, which probably would have worked a little bit better with the base. It didn't just run off. But didn't read the instructions. Once I read the instructions, it made a lot of sense. Not sure how I didn't think of it, but I didn't pre-soak the board. So my board did light on fire. I managed to keep the fire away from the fish and then just turned one side of the barbecue off, moved it off to direct heat. So I had to cook it a little bit longer than 10 minutes just because it wasn't getting the heat that it needed. But regardless, it smells amazing, and that's a good piece of salmon. As much as I maybe would have liked at least one more for the freezer, showing up somewhere you've never been and finding some success is never easy. I didn't even scratch the surface on this river, but it certainly won't be my last trip here, and next time I'll show up with a little more knowledge and confidence of where to find the fish, and with every trip, that knowledge will grow. Plus, adding new spots to the list of places I can enjoy the outdoors and find wild, organic food is what I live for and what makes these adventures as much fun as they are.